Okay, so if you're deploying containers across AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, you already know the security headache is, well, it's very real. Today, we are going to design a single, unified strategy that can finally bring all of that chaos under control. Let's jump right in.
This right here, this is the daily reality for so many engineering teams, isn't it? You're not just juggling container registries, you're juggling completely different security ecosystems. And each one has its own set of tools, its own policies, and its own mountain of alerts. It's just a recipe for burnout, and honestly, a recipe for things to slip right through the crack.
So you're basically stuck between these two worlds. On the left, you've got the fragmented mess, separate systems, rules that contradict each other, and some really dangerous blind spots. But on the right, that's the dream. A single, unified system that gives you clarity and, most importantly, real control. That's the architecture we are going to build together, step by step.
So, what's our game plan? First, we're going to navigate the security maze that you're probably in right now. Then we'll lay out the unified architecture that gets you out. We'll break down the 3 security pillars that make it so strong, show you how to automate the whole thing with GitHub Actions, and finally, talk about what it feels like to go from total chaos to being in control.
All right, let's kick things off with the problem itself. Why is the default way we do multi-cloud security just fundamentally broken? Let's get into it.
What's really fascinating here is how these problems just snowball. It all starts with inconsistent security policies, right? Because each cloud has its own tools. Well, that leads to this flood of alerts from all these different systems, which causes serious alert fatigue for your teams. And because nothing is connected, you're stuck doing slow manual reviews, which just becomes a massive bottleneck for everyone.
So how in the world do we fix this? Let's talk about the solution. It's all about building a unified architecture that brings some, elegant simplicity to all that multi-cloud complexity. Okay, so here's the core idea, and it's actually deceptively simple. We're talking about one scanner with one set of rules for every single image you build. It doesn't matter if that container's final destination is AWS, Azure, or GCP. The security check is always the same. That is the game changer.
This analogy just nails it, doesn't it? Think about it. You would never want different security rules at different airports. No way. You want one unified TSA that applies the exact same high standards no matter where you are. That is precisely what we're doing for our code. It's really a fundamental shift in how you think about security.
Okay, so this unified scanner can't just be some magic black box. It needs a really solid foundation. And that foundation is built on 3 distinct but totally complementary security pillars.
Look, a truly strong security posture isn't just one of these things, it has to be all 3 of them working together. You've got to scan for known vulnerabilities, you absolutely have to check for misconfigurations, and you have to block forbidden stuff from getting in. If you miss any one of these, you've got a major gap. They are all non-negotiable.
So, this first pillar is what most of us think of when we hear scanning. It's all about checking your code and all its dependencies against a huge database of known exploits, CVEs. This is your first line of defense against attacks that hackers have already discovered out in the wild.
Pillar 2, this one's all about prevention. It asks the tough questions. Are you running your container as the root user? Are you exposing sensitive ports you shouldn't be? Hard-coding secrets? Configuration checks dig into your Docker file and image setup to catch these kinds of self-inflicted wounds before they can ever reach production. And the third pillar is all about enforcement. This is where you lay down the law. You define what's explicitly forbidden. Maybe it's a base image that's known to be insecure, or a package with a critical flaw, or even a software license that violates your company's legal policies. If it's on the block list, it does not get in, period.
This table really brings it all together. Just notice the different goals here. Vulnerability scanning is reactive. It's looking for known threats. Configuration checks are proactive. They're about following best practices. And blocklisting is about absolute policy enforcement. Put them all together, and you get a real defense-in-depth strategy for your container images.
Now for my favorite part. This whole architecture isn't something you have to run by hand. Oh no, we are going to build it directly into the developer workflow, using automation. So let's just walk through this flow. Picture it. A developer pushes code. Immediately, GitHub Actions kicks off a workflow. It builds the container image, but, and this is key, before pushing it anywhere, it sends it to our centralized scanner. The scanner applies our 3 pillars and returns a super simple go or no-go. Only if the result is go does the image get pushed to the right cloud registry. Security becomes this seamless, automatic, non-negotiable.
And hey, this isn't just a diagram on a slide. This is what it actually looks like in your code. Just a single step in your GitHub Actions workflow. That's it. It's clean, it's easy to audit, and it embeds this powerful security gate right where it belongs, in the CI/CD pipeline.
So, what have we actually accomplished by putting this architecture in place? Well, we've moved from a state of constant, reactive chaos to one of calm, proactive control.
The payoff here is just enormous. First, you get that single pane of glass everyone's always talking about. One place to see all your container risks across every cloud. Second, you get true consistency, which is an absolute dream for compliance and audits. And maybe the most important part is that you empower your developers. Security is no longer a bottleneck. It's a self-service tool that gives them instant feedback right inside their workflow.
And that's really the key takeaway here. By centralizing and automating your container security, you don't just reduce risk, you eliminate this massive source of friction and just plain old toil. You free up your teams to focus on building, on innovating, on tackling the next big challenge. The question is no longer, is it secure, but what's next?